Join me for this episode where we're diving into discovering your purpose while mastering the game of life. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and a few laughs along the way. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Tawana Talks, where we dive deep into stories that shape leaders, transform communities, and inspire us all to strive for more. And here to bring you with yet another conversation filled with insights, inspirations, and a whole lot of heart. Today, I have a very special guest whose journey embodies dedication, passion, and a profound influence on education and community empowerment. I am so thrilled to introduce to you all Neal, a pillar of inspiration and change in educational landscape and beyond. Before we get into conversation, let me just give you a little bit of information about Ross. Many years before he set foot into the classroom as an educator, his journey actually began at a very young age, at the age of 14, right after his 14th birthday. Working in inner city youth at a local community center, this early experience ignited a flame of passion of supporting and uplifting young minds, a flame that has only grown brighter with time. Ross's dedication led him to various community centers and group homes where he continued to make a difference part-time before making a significant leap into education in the year 2012. For over a decade, Ross served as a Title I educator and a coach. And for those of you that are not familiar with Title I education, that's the education system that services the population of students and families who are underserved and also economically challenged. So this is where his commitment to education, his social emotional learning, restorative practices, and sports truly made waves. But Ross didn't stop there. Today, he's consulting for some of the top educational programs out there and has taken his commitment to the next level as a co-founder of The Village Incorporated, a tutoring company specialized in SATs, ACTs, and the ASVAB prep. And that's for students who are looking to go to college, looking to go to career path, or the military path. So Ross's journey is a clear demonstration of what it means to live a life dedicated to empowering the next. So without further ado, let's dive into conversation with Ross to uncover stories, challenges, triumphs that have marked his incredible journey in education and in leadership. Ross, welcome to Tawana Talks. I'm so honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's go ahead and just dive right in. With such a rich experience, I want to be able to let the people hear your voice. So in your journey in the community centers to the classrooms and beyond, you've undoubtedly discovered the power of uplifting those around you. We worked together several years ago in a school system, a Title I school system, and so your impact there as well as moving on to your journey to the next. Can you share a practical tip or a story from your experience that really illustrates how anyone, not just educators, can empower others in their community or in their workplace?
I mean, honestly, it just really has you have to find your why. I know it sounds cliche, but you have to find your why. So for me, my why was I was the only child. And so for me, when I started working with youth at 14, I was 14 telling 12-year-olds what to do. So for me, it was more like having siblings. Because when I used to go to school, I wasn't bad, but I would go to school to play and have fun. Not bad play or mischievous play, but just to be able to, have camaraderie. So when I started working in the community centers, it was mainly due to the fact that I just wanted to have siblings. And I loved it and I fell in love with it. So for me, it's finding a why, it's finding a niche that you actually want to serve, finding a niche that you actually want to be able to just be able to do and then run with it. And that's just what I did. And that's how I was able to embark on this journey for me.
So when you were 14 and you were working with younger individuals in that aspect, it was, if I hear you correctly, excuse me, that just looking to have a sibling to be able to build with and build capacity with and help them in their journey. And is that your same why today? Like, how has that flourished?
I think now it's kind of matriculated into something different. Being closer to 40 than I am 30, it's now you want to be. It went from being siblings and peers to being a big brother to actually father figure. So it's kind of transitioned as I've transitioned in age. So I'm sure when I get a little bit older, it'll be that grandfather type of wisdom. And as I try to grow, I try to allow the impacts and the things that I do to grow with me as well. And that's a way to kind of help me always kind of keep honest and make sure that I still have a passion and we're moving in sync together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that the fact that taking your own experience and wanting to impart it on others to help them move along their journey, knowing that everyone's journey is not going to be the same. But if you can give a nugget to say, hey, I know over that way it's going to be a rock and a bump, so you might want to take your knee pads. um, and just kind of preparing them for that. What are some things that you've done that maybe listeners could pull from that has helped you to dig deep and to find that why? What are some practical things that you've done to be able to say, this is my why. This is why I do it.
I mean, one of the main things is you got to see impact and you got to see need. You got to be able to see below the surface. You have to be able to see and read and hear the things that aren't necessarily communicated. And you have to be able to also be able to see when you're actually making an impact, even if it's small. A lot of times it's baby steps, but it's really overall encompassing an awareness of the entire being that you're actually working with, or the entire beings that you're actually working with, and wanting to create that. A lot of times I think about people who might have poured into me and they didn't stop, they didn't quit, they kept pushing and pushing. A lot of people might have fell off, but there's always one or two that they keep going pushing. So I try to use that as a guide and as a reference. So even if you don't feel like you're making an impact, trust me, I've had kids come back to me 10 years later. Man, I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. So it's almost like investments. You
Yeah.
put money in Apple or whatever the case may be, you're not going to see that money to 10 and 15 years later. So you just kind of have to trust that and believe that the stuff that you're instilling in people, you might not see it now. If you teach sixth grade and you're in a middle school, you might not even see it by the time they leave and go to high school. But for some, it will happen whether you see it or not. And
Right.
that's
No,
the satisfaction that you have to be able to have. You
I hear
can't
that. I love. Say that again.
I said you can't reach everybody. You can't change the world, but you can change the world for some people. And even if you do it for one or two or three, you're doing a service to the world, because then that's a domino effect. Now they might do that for somebody else. So when you're working with them and you're teaching with them, you're also teaching them, hopefully through your actions and your behavior, to be able to do that for somebody else.
No, that's good. That's just the whole phenomenon of when you're planting a seed, you don't see what the seed is doing in the ground, but it's doing something. You may not even see that piece of fruit if it's not something that you're planting in your own yard, but that fruit is then going to, or that vegetable or whatever it is then going to be food for an individual, which then will allow them to labor for the things that they're doing. And so that small seed creates great impact, whether you see it or not. And just thinking about like your why, what's your purpose for it. I did a a lot of mine is like about education and about parenting, because those are the things that I do, right?
Mhm.
And so I think about with my children, like I have grown children and I have a 9-year-old. And I think about when I'm talking to parents, or I'm coaching parents and things of that nature, like your like when you want them to clean their room, right? Your why is not really to have a clean room. Your why is that you want them to grow up to be individuals who are self-sustaining, who are responsible. And so and I've done it. We fuss and we yell and things like that. But if you sit back and you think like, what's my fussing for? Like, how do I look to the future of the why of like, this is what I want? And how then do I approach this situation so that I can inspire a vision in my child to be able to do these things that I'm asking of them to do without nagging. I did a previous talk about really about the same thing, about when you are how you treat people is great impact, and you may not even realize the impact it had. When I was younger, there was a lady that she may not even ever know that this impacted, because she passed away when I was younger and I really didn't know her. I just knew her in the neighborhood, but she stopped me on the way going into this corner store and she said, you have a beautiful smile. That lasted with me well into my adulthood, the fact that I'm talking about it right now, and she may have passed away when I was 11 years old, so that's several
Mm.
years ago. And so I love that you have hit on that, you know, doing something that's going to have lasting impact, um, whether you see it or not. And so that just kind of lends itself to the next area that I kind of want you to really just impart some of your wisdom and knowledge on us for this. So in your path, um, there has been one of great resilience when you think about being 14 and leading others in that space, being a single, only child. That comes with a whole nother level of, resilience, because sometimes you have to do some things for yourself. So I'm sure you've navigated through significant challenges and changes. Can you share with us any particular challenges or changes that came up? And for listeners who might be facing their own hurdles, whether there's some personal life things, whether there's parents or there's career-minded individuals, just a piece of advice or strategy that you found effective for being able to bounce back and be stronger.
I mean, you got to have a, sometimes we all struggle, but you got to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. You got to have a relationship with God. You have to look at him as your source. And I know for me, a lot of times when I struggle, it's because I'm trying to work in my own will. I'm trying to work into my own power. And you have to submit those things to the Father. You just have to. And it's not something that's easy. It's a, well, that's something that will never be perfect in, but that means you always have something to work toward. I know Kobe Bryant was like, I chased perfection and I knew I'd probably never get it, but that means you have a life's journey of work. So going on your journey, you have to, it's a lot of things. You have to realize sometimes your reality isn't the reality of the world, or your reality isn't necessarily the reality of the situation that you're in. So you have to understand the systems. You have to understand the places that you're in, and you have to navigate through them. I know, for example, when I first started on my journey to enter the field of education, I was denied a job. I was born in Philadelphia, raised in Delaware, and they had a Philadelphia like teaching fellows. I went there. Of course, I had more hair in my head. Philly is known for the Sunni beard, so I had my beard out a little bit to the maximum capacity that I could grow it. More facial hair than the beard, but it was the best I could do. Hair was a little longer. I went on to the interview and I didn't get it, and I was flabbergasted. I was hurt. I was like, someone who was born in this area, raised not too far from the area, loves the sports, understands the culture. Philadelphia is one of the most urban school districts in America. How could I get a job? And then I thought about the panel where there were no minorities on the panel. There were no males on the panel. And I didn't use that as a, this isn't for me. I just smartened up and I learned the game. I wish I had them right with me, but I have a pair of glasses that I have. So I cut off my beard, I cut my hair down, and I threw on a pair of glasses, took my earring out, and every single educational interview that I got after that, I got. I went to Indianapolis, got the job. I went to Baltimore, I got the job. I went to Charlotte, which is the job that I actually took, and I got the job. And every single job that I've wanted, I've taken those glasses with me, or put on a pair of glasses and actually wore them in my interview, and I found success. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes you have to understand the game that you're playing. You have to do research, just like I was an athlete. So you have to do research on the team that you're playing. These plays might work for this team, but it might not work for that team. So what you do might work in the perfect setting, or it should work, but you have to know the opposition that you're up against. So it's studying your opposition, and then while you're studying your opposition, trying to have that relationship with God and allowing him to lead you through it. And that's the best way. And never quit, never give up.
I love that. I love that you have to study your opponent. I love that. You have to know the game. And what I put from that, and what I would love for listeners to pull from that, is we're not talking about the whole concept of like, life's a game, you got to play it. Not the whole concept of being played, in the cultural sense of being played, but the concept of you have to be able to navigate life by knowing the pieces that are moving in life, right? And so when you're thinking about it, when you say knowing your opponent or knowing the game, and sometimes it's not necessarily the opponent, it's the people that you're interacting with. And so for a parent, that could be your children. You got to study your children. You got to know them so that you can be able to build and interact a relationship. For an educator, you got to know your students. You got to know your administrators. If you are an administrator, you got to know your staff so that you can interact. That's the game of life. It's not to win or lose, because there's lots of games out there that's not win or lose. There's strategy on learning for your next step. I think about, like, when I was in the classroom, if my students were on social media, so was I. I needed to know what language y'all were talking. I needed to know what the newest slang was, because I needed to know how to be able to pull you into my world. So I needed to enter into your world. So if there was something that you were doing, I remember the movie Hangover was out, and I needed students to turn their phone ins because I knew that was a distraction in class. I taught high school. And so I knew that was a distraction. They didn't think it was a distraction. They're like, my phone's not going to distract me. Every time it dings, it clicks, yeah, whatever. So I had to enter their world so that they can be able to accept and enter mine. And so I remember putting up the shoe caddy, and this is before everybody started using the phone caddies or phone, spaces and things of that nature. Now they sell them on Amazon. And so I used the clear shoe caddy, and I called it phone daycare. And then I used memes from Hangover, and was like, so your phone's in daycare, but did you die? Like, all of the things. And I was like, you can feed your baby, you can plug it up, and I just had all these memes, and it was clear. I'm like, you can see your kids, baby crying, it's okay, all of the things. And they did it, and they loved it. And so that's going to that point of knowing the game, knowing your opponents or the people that you're playing the game with. But then when you go into the aspect and you talk about the real world and moving into getting a job or learning the system so that you can be able to be successful in it, but also build relationships. And I love the fact that you hit on having a relationship with God. It's like, there's so many things where we've taken that out of the equation, and you're like, I'm doing it on my own. And then you realize, people don't realize that you're not having success because you're not really doing it on your own. You're frustrated because you think you are, but there's a higher power. There's God that is helping to orchestrate your steps and order your steps. And there's a particular scripture in the Bible, and I don't know exactly where it came from, but I want to say Hebrews, but that might not be right, but it might be. Um, but it talks about basically, although you may, if you're having your steps ordered by God, but although you may fall, you're not going to fail because your hand is in his hand. And that, to me, is comforting and reassuring, because then it tells me that God knows you're not perfect because he made you. So he's not expecting you to be perfect. He's just expecting you to have your hand in his hand. He's going to help guide you through the things that you're doing. And and he has more than one way to bless you. So if you are just communicating and trying to connect to the source, like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this, so I'm just going to keep on and connecting, and you realize, oh, that wasn't quite it. He's like, it's fine. It's fine. I got another way. Like, you still talking to me. I'm not expecting for you to get it right. So I do appreciate you um, really hitting on that. And then just thinking about you going holistically. And so you've worked with children, you're an athlete, now you work with school systems to help them build their systems, working with students in being successful for their SAT venture, their ACT venture, which is none like any other test they've taken in school. Having to pull them out to say, now you got to take something totally different, and then we're going to be able to use this as if you're going to be successful in the school, is a whole nother topic. But you taking on that venture, and then also looking at the ASVAB, which is, again, a whole nother aspect, but also helps students to be successful. So having that holistic mindset and the concept of holistic development being central to your work, blending the emotional, the social, and even the physical growth into the aspect for someone who's like looking to adopt a more rounded approach for their own development or supporting anyone else's journey. Could you share or offer some concrete like examples or actions from your experience that had been really meaningful, had a really meaningful impact?
Yeah. I would say, and these are some things that I've just started doing, in my 30s. So, these are things that I should have been doing in my own personal development, way before that. Reading. And
Mm,
even though I taught language arts, I don't like to read. But now they have great technology, which is Audible. So you
yeah.
can listen to the books. So reading and or listening to books in regards to things that you actually want to do or that you're interested in. I always say I have a doctor's degree in common sense, but now I feel like I have a master's degree in YouTube University. YouTube can really teach you a lot of things if you're able to disseminate the difference between fact versus fiction and verify with sources and do your own research and then talk to actual people who have experience to confirm those things. Therapy, going to therapy. I think that's you don't necessarily have to have something wrong with you to actually go to therapy. It's just important to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody or to understand how you think and how you process. That's something that my wife is a big um, advocate for. I would say also I would say trying to serve people who have what you want and use that experience to guide you when you get there. You know, in a lot of spaces, I'm quote unquote the man where people are serving me. Hey, do you need anything? Do you do this? Do you need anything? Hey, I'll do this for you. You know, how about that? What do you think about this? But it's very important to not be stuck into that space, no matter what side of the spectrum that you're on, but also be able to do that from other people because it's very humbling. It's very humbling to go from I'm in this space and I'm the man and I was here all day. Now I got to go to somewhere. Hey, you want me to grab your bag? Hey, I'll grab the door for you. Hey, is there anything that you need me to do? But it's important to get those two dualities because they help you maneuver. Because now that those skill sets help me in what I'm doing, but then also on top of that, I'm getting skill sets and I'm learning the quote game for how I want to do things. So for things that I'm doing now, I worked or I volunteered my way, and people actually seen the worth of the things that I was able to things that I was able to volunteer to actually want to bring me along. Some of it was that was the goal. Some of it was this is who I am as a person. But being able to have those experiences to bring it together. My wife has also led me to realize, having accountability partners, whether that's spouse, whether that's a friend, whether that's whoever, just someone to hold you accountable, someone that you can say, hey, man, I messed this up. They might say, hey, I messed it up with you. Let's figure out how to do it together. Or, hey, I went through that before and, this is something that you can do. So just it's a lot of different processes. And unfortunately, sometimes if you don't have anybody to instill those things in you, got to figure it out. So sometimes you figure it out later in life, like I have. I'm still learning a lot. I feel like I've only tapped in regards to my potential. I might only be a D plus, just to be completely honest and transparent, because there's so many things that I'm realizing that I could do better and be more consistent on and things like that. But if you can get those things early, if you can get someone to instill those things in you 14, 15, or start that process early, like I feel like therapy should be a mandatory. State testing is mandatory, so why not? Why does only every school have one counselor or two counselors? I know resources are limited, but you should have at least 10. You should be 4 per grade level.
Right.
You have to, the things that you need as an adult, if school is used to prepare you for the world, you need to start adding things into that.
I agree. I strongly agree with that. You just hit on a great point. Like, if state testing is mandatory, why shouldn't therapy be? And why, this is a whole nother topic, but just like we should get our annual physical checkup, our annual teeth cleaning, why is it not mandatory to get our mental well-being intact as well? And why, if we are teaching children nutritious factors from the moment they're able to consume food so that they build healthy habits of food in their adulthood, why are we not teaching healthy habits of mental wellness from the moment they're able to think, going all the way through? Why is that something that we have to get outside resources for? Why are we saying, well, it costs too much money, so we're going to have a therapist and then a counselor in classrooms, and then those counselors are then pushed to do things like paperwork and if in high schools it's pushed to do your scheduling and all of those things and looking at your grades and things like that. And there's few schools who do counseling. Like the school that I was principal at, I did have the program and built the program to where students were getting mental wellness, but that started in high school, ninth grade. there's so much to unpack that has happened in their middle school years and in their, all of those types of years. But I would make sure that students understood and knew, like, you typically would have to go somewhere and give them your insurance card for this. You guys are getting this free, and I want you to be able to use this as a tool and then build this as a habit, a healthy habit for life. So I really, really, really appreciate you, really stamping on that. And that's awesome. I really appreciate that.
One more thing, I'm sorry, I wanted to add.
No, go ahead.
Start and something I've been doing over maybe just over the last year, like start studying like neurology and like how the brain works and understanding like the certain systems that are out, like with social media and algorithms and things like that. So look at your algorithms. Go to Instagram and look at that page that shows basically whatever it is that you click on. If it's filled with filth, then you need to actually go in and reset your algorithms. Because it's set up to create an addiction to where now you're spending all this time on here and then you're not being productive. So make sure your algorithms are things that are productive. If you want to work out and be in better shape, that's what you should see. If it's about personal growth and development, then that's what it should be. Understand how the brain works. Understand certain things, like when you wake up in the morning, it's great to go outside and take a small walk for 7 minutes, so the vitamin D and how that impacts your brain and oxygen and all of those things. So learn how the body works, from the brain to your body, like the limbs. Like, health is wealth. So many things I'm learning because I still want to try to be active and things like that. Like, when you fall, what's one of the biggest things that you're worried about breaking when you get older? Your hip.
Your hip.
Why is it that from 20 to 60 we're not stretching our hips? Like, we know we know the end result could be a broken hip, but why are we not stretching these things? Why are we not stretching our back? So that impacts quality of life. That impacts the ability for us to travel and get up and do the things that we want to do. So it's so many different things that we have to do to be at our best self. Because if my body's hurting, I'm not going to be at my best self. That's going to affect my mental. So it's I don't know. You can talk about that for the rest of the hour.
Right, that's in tandem. And I think that that's important what you said, like going back to the beginning, know your why. And what I mentioned about your why is not your right now, like why you're doing it right now. Your why is your lasting impact. And one of the overarching, the motto for my organization is nurturing leaders for lasting success. We do it now so that we can last longer and later, mentally, physically, emotionally. That sustainability is what matters. So whatever you're doing is your why should be for lasting. You're not trying to work to make a couple of dollars today. You're trying to work so that you can be able to have sustainable life long term. So thanks for saying that. And then the other thing that you said, which I think is really important, know your algorithm. Now, I want people to hear that, because I heard deeper than that. Not just your algorithm on your social media, your mental algorithm. What are you putting into your mind? Not just what you're looking at on social media, but what are you putting into your mind daily when you're going outside and you're looking at the environment, when you're having conversations, the things that you're saying to yourself, that all builds an internal algorithm. And if that's not intact, then you got to change it. You got to change your algorithm. And a lot of that happens when you get that closer relationship with God. And so that shifts your mindset. It gives you a thirst and a yearning for things different than what you were thirsting and yearning for before, so that you can have a more balanced and a more well algorithm, so that you can be lasting successful for the person that you need to be long term. Thank you. Thank you for hitting on that and bringing that, coming back with that, because I think that was powerful, powerful. So I first, again, thank you. I can't even, because I'm just kind of wrapping my mind around that right now. You said, my background is in psychology, so I'm thinking the mind, like, that's so important. When you said 7 minutes outside, it's like, dang, that's powerful. Because when you get outside, you are able to get out of your own head. And now you can see something different, even to your point of talking to a therapist or having an accountability partner. That takes you out of your own box space, brings it broader. It's very egotistical for us to think we don't need to talk to anybody, because that means then you're saying, I got all the answers. Because the only person you're talking to is yourself, and you think that you're omniscient. And when you do that, because when you talk to other people, they're able to give you different perspectives, different experiences, different things that they see. And you're like, oh, I didn't even ever think of that. Of course you didn't, because you didn't have that experience. I love that you said that.
And I was very fortunate in that regards. Of course, it's the duality of husbands and wives where we always agree and disagree. I feel like I have that skill. She would probably disagree, but I feel like it's very important to get other people's perspectives because I feel like I was fortunate. Raised in Delaware, in a decent suburb, black neighborhood, but raised in the suburbs. And when I started working in the inner city, at like fully, I was like, man, like this is insane. And things like that, and actually going to the summer camps in the inner cities and things like that. So I was able to see both spectrums that was opposite, for myself. Working in group homes with sex offenders and gang members. So and how they think. So I was able to tap in. Oh wow, that's an interesting concept. So I just put those nuggets in my backpack. And then being from up north and then living in Detroit, because I went to college in Detroit, Michigan. So understand, okay, well, this is a different coast. I was like, the clothes y'all wear, we were wearing that, three years ago.
Don't do
And
it.
they got, but then I started adopting their style. Back in the day, it was, we wore the jeans with the dress shoe and understanding their thought processes and culture. And then it wasn't Southern hospitality, but it was hospitable, and I wasn't used to because up north, you walk across the street, you see somebody you don't really speak. If someone speaks to you, why are you speaking to me? But then
No, do we know each other?
yeah, it's friendly. So I'm getting like, wait a minute, okay, it's fine to be friendly, and I've taken that with me. And sometimes I crack jokes, talk with strangers in public, and they look at me like I'm weird, and I'm just like, you just might not have had that experience. So then going from there to living in the South with Southern hospitality and having people just wanting to help you for no reason and not want anything in return. I remember I called my best friend. I was like, man, these girls are so friendly. I don't know if they like me or if they're just being friendly, but I'm gonna find out. Like, because up north, you need game and quick words. So just being able to be in different experiences and then working with youth, now I get to identify, okay, this is how a 10-year-old acts, this is how a 5-year-old acts, this is how 18-year-old acts. Okay, well, dang, now I can analyze myself. So when I do this is a part of me that reacts like a 14-year-old. This is a part of me that reacts like a grown man. This is a part of me that reacts like I'm 6. So is it trauma? Was there trauma experience and I just never moved upon it? Or was it something bad that happened? Or is it something that I just never developed? But you get to analyze other people and then analyze yourself. And then you get to see what's normal, what's non-normal, what's abnormal, what's normal for this area, that, or like you just get to be able to have a whole bunch of different perspectives and then put them in your backpack versus if I would have stayed in Delaware, lived in Delaware, worked in Delaware, I wouldn't be able to understand a lot of different things that go on. So
Yeah. And I think that goes to your point of like we just discussed, like know the game. Like, and again, I really want to press on not game in the cultural sense. It is the game of life. Like we have moving parts and that the parts that are moving, you have to develop relationships. We were not created to do life by ourselves. And so in order to do life with other people, you have to understand other people and you have to remove your ego. And so when you talk about putting different things in your backpack, when you learned like how the individuals that you were working with in the group home, working with young people, going to different states and different cities, those are tools to the game. Those were little pieces, little like Monopoly, when you turn over the card and you get a piece of information, those are pieces of information to help you navigate to the next space in the game board so that you can take that and you're working with another 10-year-old. You're not, oh, I got some information that helps me to gain a perspective of how I need to communicate with this individual, or in a space where you are like, I have some information that I've been able, some context. I have some context, especially you being a English teacher, it was important for students when they read to get some context clues. If they read something about a different space or area that they're reading about, you might have had to stop sometime and say, let me give you a little bit of context about this environment or about what was going on to help them better develop an understanding of how to navigate through that passage or through that book. And then I think about what you said about being like, you said this a little bit back about serving those who have what you need or serving others. The reason why that kind of stuck with me, of course, thinking about when we're recording this right now, it's about Easter time. When it comes out, Easter will have already passed. But during the Holy Week, we were reading, my daughter and I, about how Jesus was serving prior to his crucifixion and how he was washing feet and teaching that servant leadership and telling them that you should also be washing the feet and never thinking that you're too good or you're too much of yourself to serve another, because that is the humbling experience. And so many culture would have us to think that humbling means that you are quiet, you are silent, you hold your gift, you don't say much, and you're not, but that's not what humbling is. And so thank you for really bringing that to the forefront about servant leadership and being humbled. And that's a part of being resilient as well, when you learn that and can gather on that. This has been so impactful. I've gathered so many tools. So as we kind of wrap up today's just this powerful discussion, Ross, I want first of all, thank you for reflecting on just your diverse experiences, from just empowering educators, young people, fostering resilience, giving a holistic development perspective. But what would you say is the single most important, impactful action that listeners, listener being me, and others can really take to apply some of the principles in their own lives?
The single most impactful, say it again.
The single most, what did I say? The single most impactful action. And it may be single most with an S.
Mm. Uh, I would say, trying to think how I could put it together. I'm feeling two different things. I know the
Say
Bible
them
is
both. Share them
something
both.
in there talks about always be on watch, I
Mm,
guess you could say. And I'm going to combine that with always keep your eyes open. Because when your eyes are open, you can see everything. And when I
mm,
say open, I mean have them open with a clear mind. Don't think you see what's coming, watch it, and then analyze it. So you're aware of every single thing. Because life is all about pivoting. One thing that I'm doing right now is, for a couple of different reasons, I'm training like a professional fighter every week. I think I'm in like week 6. So it's great because, one, my trainer was a professional fighter. So I'm humble. So it's humbling. I always say, try to find somewhere where you can go to where you're one of the weakest. Because if you're always
mm,
somewhere where you're top dog, you know what I mean? You have to have that other perspective, but it's protect yourself at all times. Always protect yourself at all times. So when you're always watching, when you're always on post, you're protecting yourself at all times. And even if you can't stop it, you still actually see it coming. So you have a way to react. And when you see something coming, even if it gets you, you still have a way to say, you know what? I can do better the next time this happens because I
mm,
seen it, versus just getting hit from something that you don't see. Because now, how can I how can I stop this from happening again if I don't see it? We're not going to
mm,
be able to stop everything. But if we watch, we can get up, we can get back at the drawing board and figure out how to attack it.
mm. I love that. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. That's awesome.
And
Well,
it's so many different caveats that turns into 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. Like it just goes down and down and down and down and down. It just goes further and further and further. But the most simplest form is stay ready, keep your eyes open, and then just break it down.
right. Stay ready. And I think that comes with, when you say stay ready and break it down, is reflecting. That's important, right? So like I mentioned, the motto for my organization is to nurture leaders for lasting success. And I would be remiss that if before we signed off, we didn't get an opportunity to answer the burning question, is to what's the horizon for you? Like how can we support you? What's some projects that are near and dear to your heart, an event that's stirring up for excitement, an initiative that's close to your soul? Share with us how we can rally behind you and contribute to an incredible journey that you're leading.
I say first, we should always pray for each other. So I think
Mm,
that's, I say two, one thing that I really want to do is I really want to take pivot my small nonprofit with my co-founder to really being able to offer free or to no cost tutoring services for the community. I'm also meant to add SEL to that. I forgot to add that into my bio, but I would really love to be able to get grants or get access to grants or be able to figure out how to navigate just a little bit better through that grant cycle so that we could actually have a much broader and a larger impact. I feel like the way education system is, my prediction is within the next 10 to 15 years, they're going to start to realize, because a lot of the top teachers are leaving the profession.
Yep.
So systems are going to be forced to realize, you know what, there are a lot of outside, there's a lot of outside greatness that we need on the inside. Yep. And unfortunately, the school system is lacking so many things. So being able to actually be able to infuse those values, life skills, and infuse the things that I seen that were lacking, to be able to do that would be a great work. So if you have access, if you are a grant writer or whatever the case may be, or not necessarily a grant writer, because you can find a grant writer anywhere, but you understand the niche of this game of what I'm trying to do and you have success in that, that would be great, just to talk, bounce ideas off of each other and X, Y, and Z.
And so that's for the Village Incorporated?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So let me just stamp that a little bit deeper. If you are a grant writer, if you have funding, if you have access to funding, the goal is to be able to build money so that you can be able to provide free resources to the population of students that you support. And so we just want to be really crystal clear and not ambiguous. Like, if this is something that is your passion as well, and you have the resources to support, or you know someone who can, then definitely reach out. What would be the website that they could go to?
It will be educatethevillage.com.
Educatethevillage.com. And how can people follow you? I know that you said you're on Facebook. Are you on any other social media platforms?
That's something I got to get better at. I am so terrible at social media and posting and just, oh my gosh. I think I've had what, 2000. I was late with Facebook. I think I got Facebook in 2010. I might have 10 profile pics. Like, it's bad. So Ross Neal on Facebook is probably the best way. Just to get.
And the nonprofit doesn't have a social media, it's just the website?
It's I'll tell you that right now. That's how bad I am with social media. On
Okay, say it one more time.
Educate the Village on Instagram as well.
Educate the Village. All right, and so I'm gonna extend this ask as well. If you're looking to support this cause and you are a content creator, you are someone that can run social media for this cause, then reach out to Ross, because he may need your support in that area. He's already mentioned that he's not a social media buff, but this is the way of the world now. And so we need to get this message out there even more. And so if you're someone who works in that space and this is a passion to you, definitely reach out. Any last words, anything lastly that you want to be able to impart on listeners before we actually close out?
Just one thing that you said that I wanted to touch on, where you were talking about how you were studying your students, like figuring out what they're listening to and things like that. That works in the educational space. You know, so many teachers I see come in and they have so many issues and so many barriers that they're not able to cross because you're not tapping into the culture of where you're. I've worked in affluent areas and I've had to study songs, listen to songs, learn dances that I had no idea who they were. You have to do that to be able to connect. And that goes from there, that goes to marriage. You know, we're supposed to study our spouse and all of that stuff and live with them and understand it. So it all of that stuff is an embodiment for being able to live in community and cohesiveness with somebody. So I just encourage everybody to just continue to study the people that are in your circle and not get frustrated, because that's something that I've struggled with. Like, you get frustrated, like, why are you doing this? But that just means I have a skill set that you just don't necessarily have, and vice versa. So we have to be patient, because we all have the responsibility to be able to teach somebody in a way and build them up in a skill set that we have that they don't have, and vice versa. That's how you build strong community and unity and family.
Yes, it's like you said, know the game, know your why. A particular game that comes to mind that people probably don't see it as a game, is a puzzle. Everything fits together to make the bigger picture, and without those pieces, you don't get the whole picture. And so knowing your pieces, knowing how each individual that you interact with is a greater piece to your puzzle, to your bigger why. And so, Ross, thank you so much for helping us to see the big picture and for us to put together some puzzle pieces. And thank you so much for being a puzzle piece in my day to help me see the greater why and have such this great impactful conversation with you. I appreciate you giving up your time and helping us to experience your journey as well as your experience and impact.
Thank you. Thank you.